Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are jumping straight into a collection of sources you sent our way, all focusing on, well, some pretty serious accusations leveled against the local government and police department in Whitpain Township, Pennsylvania.
That's right. We've got a website called crookedwhitpain.com, various Reddit posts, and then references within these sources to other materials, things like documents, maybe videos, it implies.
Okay, and our mission today, just to be clear for everyone listening, is to unpack the key claims, the allegations, the events as they are described in the specific material we received.
Exactly, just what's in these sources. And you'll notice right away the tone is, well, it's highly critical, very accusatory towards township leadership, specific officials.
Yeah.
They use strong language.
Definitely. So it's really important as we go through this. Please remember, we are presenting the claims and accusations from the source material. We're not endorsing them, not taking sides, especially with anything politically charged or, the strong words used.
Right. Our goal is simply to help you understand what these sources are actually saying.
Okay, so let's dive in. The main thread, running through everything, especially that crookedwhitpain.com site, seems to be this claim.
Yeah.
The claim that alleged inaction, failures within the Whitpain Township government have negatively impacted multiple people the sources call victims.
Yeah, the sources list several specific groups or cases they connect to this claimed pattern of inaction or leadership failure.
Like what specifically?
They mention an unsolved home invasion case, a mixed-race couple, a handicapped child, a former Whitpain police employee, and also the death of a black veteran. Dante Perez Jones, they name him. They claim his death is unsolved, uninvestigated.
And the sources don't just talk about failures in general. They name names, right?
Oh, absolutely. Very direct.
Yeah.
They accuse Police Chief Ken Lawson, Detective Tom Wittig, the Township Manager Eric Traub, Brian Sweisfirth, also the supervisors.
All of them.
Well, they list Scott Badami, Kimberly Koch, Jeff Campolongo, Joyce Keller, Sarah Silverian, and Travis DeCaro. Patrol Sergeant Ivan Costi gets a mention too.
So quite a list. And the overall point the sources are making is
basically that all these incidents, when you put them together, suggest, and this is their phrase, a troubling pattern that demands accountability from the township leadership.
Okay. Now, you mentioned specific cases. It seems like one case gets a lot more detail, right? This alleged robbery, it's all over the website and Reddit.
Yes, that seems to be a central pillar of their argument. According to these sources, this incident happened September 19th, 2024, 5:55 p.m.
Pretty specific time.
Very specific. They claim it was a robbery, resulted in over $30,000 worth of stolen property and damages.
And do they say who they believe was responsible?
They do. The sources identified two individuals, Brent Bowers and Dr. George Cassera, MD.
Okay. So what's the core accusation about the police handling of this case, according to the sources?
The main claim is that Whitpain police leadership, specifically leadership,
Allegedly?
refused to question or charge Bowers and Cassera with felony offenses.
Felonies being the more serious crimes.
Exactly. Much more serious than, say, summary offenses, which come up later in the source's narrative. And they claim this refusal happened even though the sources say they have clear video evidence and extensive documentation identifying them.
And beyond not charging, what else do the sources allege?
Yeah, they claim a lack of transparency, too. They say the police department continues to withhold the official police report for this incident.
Even after requests?
Yes. They claim the alleged victims filed multiple formal open records requests. Those are the legal ways to ask for public documents sent to both the township and the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. They specifically name DA Kevin Steele.
So the sources paint a picture of inaction, lack of transparency, and what was the consequence, according to them?
Well, according to the sources, because of all this, the alleged victims felt they had no other choice and filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Whitpain Township in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania specifically.
Okay, a federal lawsuit.
Yeah.
And then things get even more serious with the claims, right? I saw mentions of bribery.
Yes, that's another layer the sources add. They claim, based on what they call independent investigators, that someone, one or more individuals, might have been compensated.
Compensated, you mean, bribed.
That's the clear implication in the source material. An alleged bribe paid so that Dr. George Cassera, MD, wouldn't be charged or questioned.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a huge accusation. Do the sources, like the Reddit posts, give more substance to that?
They try to. One post, for instance, alleges that Lieutenant Brian Sweisfirth told the victims only summary charges were filed, minor charges.
Right, not felonies.
Exactly. And Sweisfirth allegedly claimed the Montgomery County DA's office, Kevin Steele again, agreed with this decision.
But the victims didn't just take his word for it, according to the sources.
Apparently not. The sources say the victims reached out to the DA's office directly. They describe getting silence at first. Then, they say Assistant District Attorney Brianna Ringwood and AD Tannerbeck requested a 30-day continuance, a delay.
And Ringwood supposedly said she'd reevaluate the case.
That's the claim. But then, according to the sources, just more silence from the DA's office.
And how do the sources interpret that silence?
Their interpretation, presented in the posts, is that the DA's office realized something was wrong once they looked into it, but then chose silence as a kind of shield. Basically, they imply the DA's office didn't want to touch it further or admit any issue.
Okay, back to the alleged bribe. The Reddit posts get more specific there, too.
They do. One source alleges the bribe was paid by Jeffrey Cassera, identified as Dr. George Douglas Cassera's father.
And paid to whom?
The sources claim it went to the Whitpain Police Department. They even suggest lawyers were involved in facilitating it, potentially mentioning Barry M. Miller, Esquire, who the sources say was actually the victim's attorney at the time.
Wait, the victim's own lawyer potentially involved in facilitating a bribe against their interests. That's quite a claim.
It is, and interestingly, the sources then claim that Brent Bowers, the other person named.
Right, the first guy.
Yeah. They claim he did not pay a bribe. The sources sort of frame him as becoming a patsy.
A patsy, meaning?
Meaning, the sources suggest he was the one left facing charges, maybe unfairly blamed or used to divert attention once the victims kept pushing.
Okay, so victims file a federal suit. There are allegations of bribes. What happens next, according to these sources?
Then the sources claim Whitpain Township filed its own lawsuit against the alleged victims in the local common pleas court.
The township sued the victims. What kind of lawsuit?
The sources call it a bogus injunction lawsuit. An injunction is basically asking a court to order someone to stop doing something.
And the sources see this as?
They explicitly call it a retaliatory move. They claim the township filed it to try and silence or hinder the victims after they wouldn't let the robbery issue drop and started raising other concerns.
And there were claims about evidence for that lawsuit, too.
Yeah, a Reddit post alleges that the township's head of code enforcement, Travis DeCaro, tried to manufacture evidence for this injunction suit and tried to line up witnesses. They name a Rachel Noble and someone called Mike.
Did they testify?
The sources say no, they didn't end up testifying.
Okay. And the bribe theory. Do the sources point fingers at who might have received it?
They speculate. One source suggests Police Chief Ken Lawson was the most likely recipient.
Why him specifically?
The sources claim he allegedly sent Detective Wittig to, and this is their phrase, exploit his relationship with the victim's family attorney. The implication seems to be that Wittig had some prior connection and was used to manage the situation, perhaps related to the alleged bribe.
And what about the township supervisors? Badami, Koch, the others. Where do the sources place them in all this?
According to these sources, the supervisors allegedly backed the whole thing. They claimed cover up the retaliation once they found out about the alleged bribe and the victim's persistence.
So the township files this injunction suit. How did that turn out, according to the sources?
Well, the sources actually praise the judge involved, Judge Soltz. They claim he saw through the township's lawsuit and denied their motion for access, whatever they were seeking access to.
And they say he structured the order specifically to block future attempts like this.
Yes, that's how the sources interpret it. They see it as the judge recognizing the lawsuit was, in their view, retaliatory and shutting it down firmly.
Now, there's a really specific story on Reddit about Brent Bowers, right? The first guy named in the robbery.
Yes. One post details what it claims was a conversation with Bowers. In this account, Bowers was supposedly shocked he was the only one charged.
He suspected something was up.
He allegedly suspected some kind of intervention happened for Cassera, and he apparently suggested his father, Jeffrey Cassera, would do anything to protect his son's career, possibly implying buying silence or favorable treatment.
Did he say anything else?
According to this post, Bowers said he'd hired an attorney expecting serious charges, felonies perhaps, but felt it was wasted money because he got off relatively easily in the end. The source quotes Bowers as believing the story isn't over, though, and saying he's ready to talk if pursued further. He apparently prioritized his daughter, Cassidy Bowers.
I mentioned the daughter.
Well, the source claims Cassidy Bowers is, or was, allegedly still entangled with Dr. George Douglas Cassera. The source interprets this whole situation from the Bowers conversation as meaning Dr. Cassera is now sort of stuck, possibly in that relationship, because Cassidy's father, Brent, knows too much about the alleged incident and cover-up.
That's quite an interpretation. Very cloak and dagger.
It is. Another interesting detail comes from a different Reddit post. It claims Detective Thomas Wittig made a comment about why only one suspect, Bowers presumably, was charged.
What did Wittig allegedly say?
According to the source, Wittig commented that the one charged had no right to be on the property.
And the source interprets that how?
The source sees this as basically confirming Dr. Cassera was the other suspect. And the reason he wasn't charged, according to this interpretation, is because the police believed he did have a right to be there.
Even though the sources claim he was wearing a mask and gloves.
Exactly. That's the contradiction the source highlights.
There's also a recurring theme about money, right? Taxpayer money.
Yes, that comes up repeatedly in the Reddit posts. The claim is that Whitpain Township is using public funds to hire people. They specifically mention lawyers and IT professionals, essentially, to fight these allegations and, quote, clean their reputation. Instead of using that money for things like fixing roads or, as the source puts it, helping children, basic public services.
I also noticed some odd phrases popping up in the Reddit posts discussing the lawsuits.
Yes.
Like Lakers in 5.
Yes, that one, and also Testa in 5. They appear several times.
Any idea what they mean?
The context suggests they're connected to the legal battles. Maybe it's a prediction, like a sports reference for winning a series in 5 games. The sources seem to use it as a kind of shorthand or inside reference related to the expected outcome of the lawsuits they're involved in or discussing.
Interesting. And just to connect the legal dots, the victims filed a federal suit first, then the township filed its injunction suit, and then, the sources say, the victims filed a federal countersuit, specifically naming Chief Lawson and Detective Wittig. And this countersuit was framed as a
direct response to Whitpain's lawsuit, which the sources slam as a petty, bogus attempt to silence and intimidate an interracial family, tying it back again to the alleged victim's identity.
So while that robbery case is the most detailed, the sources, particularly crookedwhitpain.com, mention other alleged issues too, right, to build that pattern.
Correct. They reiterate some of the things mentioned earlier. The alleged failure to investigate the death of the black veteran, Dante Perez Jones.
Yes.
An alleged home invasion against a black family where, again, the sources claim suspects weren't charged or questioned. They list the discrimination and retaliation lawsuit of mixed-race couple, likely referring to the same victims from the robbery case.
And there was something about a child.
Yes, a claim of documented abuse of a handicapped child and his father. And also a very broad claim about litigation to restrict black individuals from the township.
Plus, a specific discrimination lawsuit involving a former police officer.
Right. The discrimination lawsuit, Jamil Van, former black Whitpain police officer, a Reddit post references this one specifically as well.
Okay.
All presented by the sources as evidence of wider systemic problems.
Beyond the cases, the sources also go after some officials individually, don't they? Not just about their alleged roles in these incidents, but about their public profiles.
Yes, they zoom in on a couple of the supervisors. Scott Badami, who's listed as the chair township supervisor on the township website, is one target.
What's the claim about him?
A Reddit post points out he's listed on the township site as a partner at the law firm Fox Rothschild LLP.
Okay.
Well, the author of that post claims they actually contacted Fox Rothschild's general counsel, someone named Rochelle Bin, and Bin allegedly told them Badami is no longer with the firm, that he was, quote, wiped clean from their site.
So the source is alleging the township website is outdated or misleading.
That's exactly the interpretation. The source claims Whitpain Township is pushing a lie about his current job. They use pretty harsh language, calling Badami jobless, washed, and clinging to the last credential he's got, and a professional embarrassment.
And they say this is being discussed more recently.
Yeah, the sources mention recent Reddit threads reigniting discussions about him, focusing on concerns about alleged mismanagement.
Okay, who else gets this kind of individual focus?
Kimberly Koch, the vice chair supervisor. Similar claims appear in a Reddit post about her.
What's the allegation there?
The post claims she was listed as a board member at Montgomery County Community College, but that information apparently mysteriously disappeared from wherever it was listed. After the author claims they started letting the right people know, essentially suggesting they pointed it out or questioned it.
And the source's take on that?
They call it a quiet little correction made once the heat got turned up. Again, the implication is that information was removed because scrutiny was applied. And another post, dated May 11th, 2025, mentions growing concerns about her alleged accountability and transparency as she campaigns for re-election.
The sources also take aim higher up, right, at the, Fit County DA.
Yes, Montgomery County District Attorney Kevin Steele. He's directly accused by the sources of, quote, covering up for Whitpain Township. That's from a Reddit post dated May 7, 2025.
That's a very serious charge against the DA.
Extremely serious. The sources basically say he's either completely unaware of the alleged situation in Whitpain, or he knows about it and prefers it that way. They frame the DA office's alleged silence on these issues as complicity.
And they make that comparison.
Right. The source uses the line, Cosby got a trial, Whitpain got a pass, courtesy of Kevin Steele, making a direct and obviously provocative comparison.
Looking at the bigger picture of how these sources operate, they seem very focused on online reach.
Definitely. They make a point of citing their Reddit view numbers, claiming over 800,000 views in 1 week and over 625,000 specifically on the crooked Whitpain topic in that same week. They're clearly trying to show a large online audience is engaging with this content.
And it's not just Reddit.
No, they mention using other platforms too. TikTok, where they say they reference the civil lawsuits against Chief Ken Lawson. YouTube, claiming interviews with alleged victims are posted there. And just social media generally.
Even a state senator gets mentioned.
Yes, Pennsylvania State Senator Maria Collette is named in one Reddit post. It connects her to the crooked Whitpain crew, as the source calls them, and includes a call to question why these alleged bribes were paid, and Black residents allegedly mistreated, seemingly trying to draw political attention to the issue.
And they're actively looking to create more content.
Apparently so. There's mention of a now hiring post looking for a freelance documentary filmmaker.
To do what?
The description says they want someone for projects that blend investigative storytelling, activism, and digital engagement. It specifically mentions satirical or advocacy projects. So yeah, it suggests an ongoing effort to produce more media around these allegations.
So throughout all of this, the constant drumbeat from these sources is what?
The core claims repeated again and again are an alleged systemic pattern of racial discrimination and a corruption cover-up involving the township government and police department.
And they provide contact info, too.
Yeah, the sources list phone numbers, email addresses for various township officials. It feels like a call to action, encouraging others to contact the township or get involved.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. What we've seen here is, well, it's a detailed narrative built primarily from this crookedwhitpain.com website and reloaded Reddit activity.
Absolutely. And it presents a whole series of really serious accusations against Whitpain Township leaders and the police. Claims of inaction on crime, discrimination, lack of transparency, even active retaliation.
Right. Using that alleged robbery case as a very detailed sort of central example to anchor their broader claims of systemic problems.
And just to reiterate for you, the listener, our goal here was strictly to report what's in these specific source materials, the claims, the details, the allegations as presented by them.
We haven't taken a side. We haven't tried to verify independently. We're just unpacking the sources you provided. We've maintained impartiality, which is crucial when you're dealing with sources making such strong claims.
So this deep dive gives you that structured overview. You can quickly grasp the core arguments being made in these sources, the specific examples they use, and the overall picture they're trying to paint.
And thinking about this, it does raise a final thought, doesn't it, based on what these sources depict?
It does. You see here accounts of people using websites, Reddit, public records requests, all these digital tools in what they present as a persistent effort to hold their local government accountable.
So maybe something for you to think about is the role that this kind of online activism, this sustained citizen effort, as portrayed in these sources, might play today in raising awareness about local issues.
And on the flip side, consider the potential challenges citizens might face again, according to these accounts, in actually getting official responses, getting action, or navigating potential pushback when they try to use these channels. It's a complex picture presented by these sources.